Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the symposium. This symposium is Tiny Progresses, Big Challenges. I would like to introduce the first speaker of this symposium, Dr. Dhruvi Hasnani. Her topic is early detection, lifelong protection, screening strategies in kids. Dr. Dhruvi is HOD Clinical Research, RIMS, Ahmedabad. She is also a governing council member of RSDI Gujarat chapter. She is winner of Torrent Young Scholar Award for Diabetes. She authored several publications and she is a reviewer of also several publications. Welcome, Dr. Dhruvi. And she is also a friend for a long time.
Thank you. The esteemed panel of chair women today is, really motivating me to, talk about this early detection. First of all, it's always wonderful being here at the JPEF. Thank you to the team of JPEF. Thank you to Jyoti sir and Sunita ma'am for always being kind and bringing the most important topics of discussion: early detection and lifelong protection. And that's what I'm going to talk about, screening strategies, but why in the kids? We've been having a lot of educational programs when we talk about adults, when we talk about non-communicable disorders, but why the kids? And I want to start by, the viral type 1 Barbie thing that has been going on over the social media since 2 days. And I'm like, the market doesn't do anything unless it sees that it has a potential in customers. So do you think that type 1 diabetes in kids is up to a level that they needed to manufacture something, not just for the representational purpose, not just from the positive point? I don't know how, everybody might look at. But why are the kids such a big market then? Are we doing not enough in terms of screening these kids earlier? Do we not have enough prevention strategies? Are we not doing our work well? It's kudos to whosoever came up with the idea and brought the doll. But just a food for thought. We'll discuss it sometime off the dais as well. So let me tell you about a girl who I saw just last week before I made the presentation. She came with acanthosis, she came with irregular periods, and the mother did not understand that it was because of the obesity. She just was concerned that, my daughter is not having regular periods. She started her menarche, say, by the age of 11 and a half. Everything was good up till the last 6 months. She's got some black markings, which again the mother did not know that they are called acanthosis nigricans. And on investigation, we found that the A1C was 6.1, SGPT 58, and high triglyceride. Now again, BMI, defining a kid as obese, is so debatable. We say in the percentile range of 85 and above, percentile range of 90 and 95 and above. But again, that percentile also comes from the normal kids. So when we are saying that a kid is above the 95th percentile, does that mean all the other kids are also getting in the higher side of overweight and obesity? And do we again need to do something about that? Now, the why of pediatric screening. This is an NCD children panel. Just understand the gravity of building an alliance wherein we have to talk about non-communicable disorders in children. The numbers are too huge, and we'll have to understand that 42% of the world's population is under the age of 25, and half of them, of the diabetes-related deaths, are happening in the adolescence period. Be it because of diabetes, obesity, hypertension, cardiovascular disorders, cancers, n number of other reasons. But it is still happening in the kids. And what are we doing? 2.1 billion children are affected by these. And mind you, these are old statistics. We don't even have the newer ones. The story starts very early. It starts from infancy. It starts from the womb of the mother. We have, stalwarts in this conference who will be talking about gestational diabetes, who will be talking about why taking care of a woman with NCD is important so that the next generation stays NCD free. So for an adult with an established non-communicable disorder, again, be it diabetes, cardiovascular disorder, hypertension, or any other thing, the pathophysiology and the programming started very, very early, and in absence of any strategy or any prevention program, this is how the adult landed up with troubles. So let's look at something which is known as a life course approach. And for chronic disorders, it is important that the lady learns how to take care of her health. It is important that the ovum, which is again programmed when that child is in the mother's, or the lady is in the mother's womb, that programming, the genetic programming, happens way before that girl hits puberty, is in the reproductive period, then gets married, has kids, and that kid is, exposed to an environment of, say, either malnutrition or overnutrition, leading to epigenetic changes in the genetic pool. An important thing, since I'm a diabetologist and I'll concentrate on the diabetes part of it, the fraternity of doctors is also talking about metabolic syndrome in type 1 kids. There is abdominal obesity, increase, or let's say stabilization of a lot of metabolic parameters and inflammatory markers, lesser HDL range and higher triglyceride range, and we call it dyslipidemia, increase in blood pressure, and of course dysglycemia. This is happening as frequently that we need to talk about it now in a stronger manner than we have been, putting it at the back foot. There are a lot of things that we can do, and that is why it is important that we come on the same page. Advocates, people with diabetes, kids with diabetes, their parents, doctors, endos, pediatricians, anybody and everybody willing to do something for these kids should come together and, formulate these strategies, and I'll come to that. Now, look at this, entire picture. A kid who is born overweight or obese was exposed to an obesogenic environment in the mother's womb itself, because that mother in turn was exposed to an obesogenic environment or epigenetic factors when she was a child. That made her develop some sort of dysglycemia or other non-communicable, or let's just keep it simple, dysglycemia and hypertension during her pregnancy, which led to that child also having non-communicable disorder, diabetes, atherosclerosis, endothelial dysfunction way early in the life. This is the reason for increase in morbidity as well as mortality in kids. Now, why should we screen early? And it's simple: catch the risk and not the disease. And it is possible in 2025. We have to build policies that talk about prevention more than treatment. Children with type 2 diabetes are at a higher risk both of detrimental mental as well as physical health, and they are again more likely to have anxiety disorders, delayed milestones, and again earlier complications, both micro as well as macrovascular complications. There are a lot of strategies. If you just Google them, they appear. It's just on us to execute them, to implement them into our practices. Identify what disease indicators you want to screen this kid for. Identify the population which is at a higher risk. Make the execution process simple and cheaper to be, to make it more scalable across various different centers. Who should be screened? Now, screen if that child has had a rapid weight gain throughout different percentiles, or if the BMI is above 85th percentile, if there is a family history of type 1, type 2, GDM, obesity, dyslipidemia, PCOS, which is there in almost everybody. This is from the ADA 2025 pediatric statement, and the ISPAD and also other pediatric association also say the same thing, that if you're Southeast Asian, number one, you're more prone as a kid also to have all of these disorders. If you have any other high-risk endocrine genetic syndromes or symptoms such as fatigue, acanthosis, menstrual irregularities, or just if the parent feels that the child is not achieving the milestones or is not scoring well or is not active. The rationale behind this being that any broader screening program is going to catch these metabolic conditions early to keep the complications away. For type 1 diabetes in particular, who should you screen? So any first degree relative of a person living with type 1 diabetes needs to be screened. There are a lot of studies going on. What should be done? Antibodies, GAD antibodies, IA2, IAA, zinc antibodies, plus the HLA if possible. When should it be done? Between the age of 3 and 5 if possible, and even if it comes normal, repeat this after 2 to 5 years. Early marker of the risk would be more than 2 positive antibodies, and that puts that child of a type 1 person or a sibling, or say, the child of a type 1, a high risk child. There are all of these screening programs that have taught us about these prevention strategies for type 1 diabetes. The TEDdy, TrialNet, Type 1 Detect, which is still going on, the autoimmune screening for kids, as well as the FRIDA study, which is currently going on in Germany. The game changer amongst all of this was teplizumab that made us talk about why screen siblings, first degree relatives, child of a person living with type 1 diabetes. The FDA has approved the use of this molecule to delay the onset of type 1 diabetes. It works in stage 2 meaning that there are 2+ autoantibodies plus some amount of dysglycemia, and it will delay the onset of diagnosis of type 1 diabetes by approximately 2 years. Now ask a person living with type 1 diabetes how much that means to them to live freely.
A lot.
Thank you. Let me quickly take you through type 2 diabetes as well, which is again quite prevalent in kids these days. When should you screen these kids? Age more than 10 years or around puberty. If the BMI percentile again is above 85th, plus there is one or more than one risk factor, like having an immediate relative with type 2 diabetes, mother having GDM, father having cardiovascular disorders, etc. What should you be doing? A1C, OGTT, again, it is on your discretion. And even if these are normal, repeat this test after every 3 years if there is a presence of risk factors. Let's talk about obesity. What should you be doing? Any kid above the BMI percentile of 85, let's just keep this number really up for all of us. Screen this child for NAFLD, screen this child for dyslipidemia, screen this child for blood pressure as well, and also take simple, ask the mother a question or ask the father whether the child is snoring, whether the child has daytime somnolence, whether the child is fatigued and does not feel like, engaging in day-to-day activities. Some other conditions that we need to screen for is also hypothyroidism, again being very prevalent in girls in their teenage, Cushing's as well as PCOS in kids who have familial history of type 2 diabetes, girls with type 2 diabetes. We also have to think beyond BMI. It could not just be BMI more than 85. You have to look at the waist circumference of that child. You have to look at the investigation parameters, SGPT, the lipid ratios, the blood pressure. Talk about visceral adiposity to the mothers as well. Mothers feel that my kid is fat means it is still a healthy sign. Let us change this narrative for all the mothers who are overfeeding their kids, showing their love through food. Let us change this narrative today. And if there are any family clustering of NCDs, we need to screen this child for diabetes, for blood pressure, and also NAFLD. In our clinical practice, we often miss diagnosing these kids because we don't know how to do it. Let's be just very honest here. It's not that, we don't want to do it, but we have so many other things that a kid is often the last thing on our mind. So if you are looking at a couple with type 2 diabetes, ask them to maintain a healthy lifestyle for their children, their household, everybody in the family. We can't wait for having overt symptoms or the disease to come up before we talk about prevention in all of these kids. There might be some cost hesitancy, but I don't think any of the parent would ever think on that side. let's just think of this: screen, counsel them, and then follow up with the parents at regular intervals. Some other strategies could be that pediatricians and physicians and endocrinologists form a link and do execute and implement policies for everyone to follow for the betterment of these kids. Maybe we have some joint clinics, maybe we have more training programs for the general practitioner who would be the first person that the mother takes the child to. Let us empower these families. Let us explain them the why of the matter. Let us tell them that, these are the growth charts you have to see. These are the, milestones that you have to see your kid for. And involve a lot of caregivers, give them some goals which could be measurable, and engaging families altogether. So grandparents, parents, if it is still a joint family, talk to the uncle, aunts, everybody about the betterment of this child's health. And now even the CBSE is mandating some sugar boards. We want to educate our kids on what is good, what is bad, what is healthy, what needs to be followed. So the best time to invest in a child's future was yesterday. We are already late today, but the second best time is today. So let's do that. So the worst time is tomorrow. Let us all come together for some good for the kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Do we have any questions from the audience? I just want to say I love your energy and passion and the kind of, how enthusiastic you are about the work that you're doing, and we're truly grateful to you, Dr. Dhruvi, for that. I just have one question, that I am very passionate about this topic because I have seen so many cases in my community where a child has lost his life without even knowing that he or she had type 1 diabetes. And we come across similar cases on a regular basis. And with that thought, I started training Anganwadi Asha workers because I thought they are handling such a big chunk of people and so many kids every day. If we can train them to diagnose, teaching them just the basics with the 4 T's to diagnose a child on time, at least we can reduce the decays, late admissions, and the misdiagnosis as well, which is happening in a lot of rural areas, because 60% of our population is in rural area where we need a lot of effort. So Dr. Dhruvi, my question from you is that we have amazing things coming up like teplizumab. So how can we strengthen our efforts to do the screening antibodies? Like in other countries, we have 4 types of antibodies that are getting tested. In India, we just have 1, right? So how can we improve that so that technologies like teplizumab will be useful for us in India as well?
So this is an amazing question, and I was just wishing somebody asked me this. The trouble with us is we don't talk often. Even when we get together, we would talk about politics, we would talk about Bollywood, we don't talk about health. Even if we talk, it would be kitni moti ho gayi, kitni patli ho gayi. Let us start a conversation about what resources are available. If you saw the latest news, there was this man who committed suicide because he could not buy insulin for his kid. And he does not know that the government does provide insulin at the nearest PHC, CHC also. So let us do this. Let us converse about the resources that are available. Like you are teaching the Anganwadis, amazing. Let us take this thing that each one teach one. Maybe I can propagate the knowledge to somebody else. He or she can propagate the knowledge to somebody. The best thing that we can do is education. That is number 1. Not everybody knows what resources are available and where are they available. Number 2, for even teplizumab to come into India, I'll tell you, we had a pediatric, meeting for pediatric diabetes. But aren't these kids also going to grow up? Why not talk about the adults also with type 1? So when we told that, even physicians, even adults with type 1 diabetes need to be on board of any NCD alliance that is happening for type 1 per se, it was a shock to them. So maybe get together often. We have to work for each other and not against each other. Let us not feel insecure about the work that we are doing. Instead, we have to bring it out that, yes, nice, like let me adopt what you're doing. And maybe I'll tell you what I am doing, and let us exchange good practices. I think only then can we come out with something. And trust me, we have amazing, brilliant minds in India as well. And we have good funding also if we put out good projects. So let's talk more on this when I get down.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dhruvi.
Thank you so much.